So this is the second podcast we've done with you guys. The first one we kind of introduced you to Ferguson Systems UK, Reptile Systems. Did the video tour around the animal room and the different things we've got and the animals we've got upstairs. This time it's downstairs in the warehouse in front of our Reptile Systems stand. This stand is actually going to be the stand we're taking to a trade show in a few days. So we thought we got all the products out, everything's all nice and displayed, so it makes sense to use this as a backdrop today. So this podcast, we really want to focus on Ferguson Zones and why we're doing it. What is the Ferguson Zone?
I think we need to, probably the best place to start is what we're trying to achieve here. So what we're trying to achieve, we're trying to replicate the sun for your reptiles, really. So for your animals, we want to get the sun and put a corner of the sun in your little box to keep your reptiles very, very happy. Of course, we can't get a massive ball of hydrogen and helium and cause a nuclear reaction and get it all going in there. So what we have to do is to provide it in other means, which normally means multiple methods of doing this. So what we're trying to do is sort of create a slice of the sun in your vivarium to give you UV, visible light and heat. But today we're mainly going to be focusing on UV, which is why the Ferguson Zone is going to be for today.
Yeah, so your reptiles, they need three things. Three factors is the most important thing for them. You need UV, you need visible light, and you need infrared or the heat. Now, to humans, we can only see one of those three elements, which is the visible light, which is what we see today. And in terms of the spectrum, that's measured between 400 nanometers and 700 nanometers. Now, unfortunately for us, the reptiles actually see both sides of visible light, which is UV, which is between 280 to 400 nanometers. And then they also see the infrared side, which is the heat side, which is 700 to 1500.
Yeah, maybe a little bit like that. It's in that realm, yeah. So
they can see UV, they can see visible light the same as us, and they can see heat. So those three things need to be considered when keeping your animals. Now, UV, the most common way of producing UV for your animals is either by a T8, a T5, a compact,
mercury vapor.
Yeah. They're the most sort of standard ways of providing UV for your animals. All of those products we just mentioned will also provide visible light. So you're actually kind of getting two products or two elements we need in one. So a mercury vapor will produce UV light, but it also then produces heat, whereas a T8, T5 and compact don't really produce the heat side. So then you need to kind of mix that up with maybe a ceramic heater or a heat projector or heat map, heat cable, another source of heat. And there is not really available yet one product that will do everything of those three elements that your reptile needs day and night. Because obviously at night, you need heat, no light, no UV. But during the day, you need UV, light and heat. So hence why there is always 2 to 3 things you need.
You're need a combination. And you're trying to create such a wide part of the spectrum to try and get that out of one product. Although it would be like the holy grail of products, it's not going to happen for a while yet.
That'd be nice.
It would be lovely, wouldn't it? Because it needs to be a completely programmable product as well, which unfortunately is not going to be available for a little while yet.
Or not unless it's $10,000 worth anyway. So maybe one day. One day. So yeah, we really want to just focus today on the first part of this element we need to provide, which is UV. And this for us now, and only recently, it's been sort of just over a year.
Yeah.
We've been adopting the method called the Ferguson Zones. So
yeah, the Ferguson Zone for us, especially as quite a new company, has been very, very difficult. We wanted to actually launch 4.5 years ago using the Ferguson Zones because we was new to the scene, even though Aquarium Systems has been around for between 55 and 60 years. Reptile Systems are still very new. So we had to conform with the current market standard, which was to use percentages. We wasn't quite happy with this, but to get ourselves launched, this is what we went for. And now we've got our feet under the table, as it were, and we've leapfrogged quite a lot of other companies because of our passion and our technological advancements, because we are primarily hobbyists, as well as having access to manufacturing and other knowledge, that we've decided to go, well, over a year ago, decided to use the Ferguson Zone as a better method and a better scale to be able to provide UV for your animals. The two things that I like about it, one of them, it's very easy to explain, which we'll do in a moment. And two, it's very easy to buy a product in your Ferguson Zone. Once you know what Ferguson Zone your animal is, it's very, very simple. You can just go into your retailer, or you can look on your preferred online seller, find the product that you need, purchase it, and you can then be confident in knowing what you've actually got is correct.
So, just in case, what is a Ferguson Zone? So the Ferguson Zone was actually developed by a professor called Dr. Gary Ferguson. Gary Ferguson basically went into the wild and tested using a solar meter the UVI of where all these wild animals, so things like a bearded dragon sitting on a rock in the midday sun, when the dragon moved, he would put the solar meter there and go, that dragon was basking in a UVI of 4. So document that. And it was done by Dr. Gary Ferguson, as well as several other scientists as well.
Yeah.
And it basically groups all reptile species over the entire planet into 4 zones. And the 4 zones are basically nice and simple. It's zone 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 being the low light level or low UV demanding species, all the way up to 4 as being the kind of high level demanding species, the things that would bask in the highest sun, in the hottest deserts, at, you know, a kind of 100-degree Fahrenheit plus all day long. Sun worshippers is the nickname that kind of goes with the zone 4. And then zone 1 is the other angle, which is the very much nocturnal species, the
Occasional bastards.
Yeah, occasional. They may come out during the day, but they don't need a huge amount of UV, but it's still vital to provide that bit of UV. Zone 2 is mainly your kind of forest animals. Zone 3 is your kind of crossover from forest to desert, and then zone 4 is your full-on real kind of desert species, your sun worshippers. So
sounds like all of the animals that I might find out here in Vegas.
yes,
Exactly.
yes.
I mean, we may have oversimplified Dr. Ferguson's
Work
there. But I know he had a
work.
big passion for chameleons, and I think that was his original basis for getting into the study of UV. And so, if Gary is listening, we do apologise if we've made it sound like he hasn't done much.
If we've
work.
taken your decades of research and put it into one sentence, we apologise now, so we really do. But in a nutshell, it takes all the animals that we know, we love, and we keep, and puts them into 4 zones. By doing that, we can then bring out a product based on that zone. So quite simply, a bearded dragon is a zone 3. So if you walk into a store, I've got a bearded dragon, it's a zone 3 animal, I need to buy a zone 3 product. Right now, we're the only company in the world to offer this service or this type of product. Before we did this, and the same as everybody else, the lamps are always listed as percentage. So you will find lamps listed as 2%, 7%, 5%, 6%, 10%, 12%, 14%. The percentage refers to the percentage of UVB that the lamp gives out. Now that's quite complicated because technically there's no handheld device or expensive scientific device
to use
to measure the percentage of UVB that your lamp is giving you. So if I was to buy a 12% lamp, I cannot measure 12% on a handheld device.
From an end consumer point of view, it makes it very, very difficult.
Yeah, so I'll give you an example of why it's difficult. So I've got a bearded dragon. It's a zone 3 animal. So the store would tell me I need to buy a desert lamp or a 12% lamp, generally an orange style packaging. And it's normally got a bearded dragon on the front because it's the most sort of wide kept desert
so
species.
you can go in there and go, oh, picture of a bearded dragon. It says desert on the packaging. It's in an orange box. I know exactly what I want. Oh, that's 12% in old money. I'll have some of that.
That's what I need. So Okay, perfect. I've got my bearded dragon and I've got my 12% lamp. Okay, so let's look at this, the next one. I've now got a chameleon.
Chameleon, yeah.
Now, chameleons don't live in the desert. They live in the forest. They live in the rainforest. They live in the canopies of trees, and they live there kind of getting the side light coming through the canopies where the broken sun rays are coming through. But some chameleons, not all, but some chameleons, things like a panther chameleon, for example, they're a zone 3 animal. That actually means, although it lives in the forest, it still needs the same level of UVI that a bearded dragon does. But now I'm not buying a desert lamp for my forest animal.
Yeah, so you go into your retailer, you explain to him that you want to buy a lamp for your chameleon or your day gecko, which are zone 3 animals.
Yeah, zone 3.
And they're a forest animal. So you go in there and go, I've got a forest one, therefore I'm going to need the forest lamp that's in a green packaging to represent forest. And it's a 6% tube. That's not really enough. I need the desert lamp. But then your desert lamp has got a picture of a bearded dragon on it, which then becomes very confusing.
So I need a 12% desert lamp for my forest habitat animal.
Yeah, and again, we look at it the other way as well. Leopard geckos, for instance, they come from scrubland, they come from Pakistan, they come from quite part of their range is quite hot. You go, well, actually, that's more of a desert animal. So I've got a leopard gecko, so I want a desert lamp. And what you find out is actually your leopard gecko is a zone 1 animal, which is like either a 5 or a 6% lamp. So you've now got exactly the opposite problem, where you've got an animal that you perceive to be a desert animal. Now it needs to be in a very low UV environment, similar to that of semi-nocturnal animals, crepuscular animals, birds, this sort of thing. So it's just as confusing trying to look at it upwards as it is to look at it downwards.
Yeah, so a leopard gecko is nocturnal. So when the sun is out in these kind of desert, harsh environments, they're in the caves, they're kind of hiding away. So they come out in the morning and bask at that kind of low sunlight level where the UVI is very low. They hide all day or sleep all day, and then they come out in the evening when it's in that kind of dusk environment. So they may live in that kind of desert environment, but actually their UV requirements are very low. So they're a zone 1. So we ought to, but just to correct Pete, what Pete said there, which is one of the confusions, you said 5% for zone 1, but actually, if you look at what would be, it should be 2%.
Yeah,
so they sell the products for daylight or 2% for leopard geckos.
That's correct, yeah.
So you can see just by what we're saying there how confusing the Ferguson zones can be. Firstly, you've got to do your research, and then
you should be doing anyway.
Well, yeah, true, very true. But you're now being kind of led by misinformation from marketing in terms of what percentage you need, which you can't test for. So we just wanted to make a really simple kind of thing that if you've got a zone 1 animal, you buy a zone 1 product. You've got a zone 2 animal, you buy a zone 2 product. You've got a zone 3, you buy a zone 3 animal. Right now, we're just working the finishing touches on our zone 4.
Yeah.
This has been very, very difficult because the amount of UV that these animals in zone 4 require is not, it breaks the mold of how much UV phosphor we can put into a lamp and still call it a lamp without it being too dangerous. So it's taken so far.
Yeah, because you can only get so much in a pint glass. This is the trouble. So you've got all these different elements you need to put in there for it actually to light up, to emit UV. And it is very, very hard.
Yeah. So we're probably pushing the kind of 2-year boundary in the zone 4 development, but we've cracked it. We're now just testing for, we want to test for 6 to 12 months at least before we even think about putting this on the marketplace. So we've got the lamp. We're just running our long-term tests, which we kind of took you guys on a quick video tour last time.
Yep.
And we'll touch on testing on future podcasts in kind of what we do upstairs. So we just need to make sure long-term testing, the lamp's all right, the degradation of UVI isn't too fast or what the levels are, so we kind of know where we know where we are. We don't want you to buy a zone 4 lamp for your Euromastic, for example, and then it lasts 3 months, but you think it's going to last a year because then you've got 9 months where that animal's not getting the right UV. So we just need to make sure that everything's okay. before we can put it to the market. So for zones, we've done the whole range. We've got the spiral style compacts in zone 1, 2, and 3. We've got the energy saving style compacts in zone 1, 2, and 3. So the energy saver is this sort of 3U kind of style packaging. We've got T8s, T5s, and we've also got our T5 light fixtures as well. So the T5 light fixture is called the Eco T5 unit. That's got the lamp, the reflector, the unit all as one. So it's one power cable, and it actually increases the amount of light into your enclosure because it's got the built-in reflector as well. So rather than buying a traditional T5 ballast, having a lead from the plug and then 2 cables, all of that is in one nice, neat unit ready to go.
That is very nice. Now, something that if you guys are listening to the podcast, something that I can see because we're recording this on a Zoom. So each of these different zones has a different color associated with it. And I know you kind of referenced it at the beginning.
Yep.
So go ahead and walk us through the different colors. So if you're out here and you're interested in purchasing these products, like they said, it makes it super easy. Hey, I've got a zone 1 species. I need to look for products that have the blue. Am I saying it right?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
Yep.
And we haven't changed what the market is used to. So we mentioned earlier about the 12% desert being orange. The 12% is probably the closest one to a zone 3. So zone 3 for us is still an orange packaging for the T5 fixture, the T5 lamps, the T8 lamps, the compacts. They're all in orange packaging. Zone 2, which is probably referenced to the 5 or 6%, or sometimes was known as desert, normally in a green packaging. So to save too much confusion, we've also done that in the green packaging across the entire range. And then the 2% daylight,
traditionally comes,
sunlight, daylight, I think other brands call it 2%. Day glow, I think is the other one. So that's normally in like a light blue, and that's exactly what we've done as well. We've tried to keep it. We haven't changed the colours too much.
Yeah, we tried to keep it familiar and sort of make it backwardsly compatible, for want of a better expression.
So you can choose by colour. It's a nice colour system. It's the same colour, same tone. So zone 1 is blue. Zone 2 is green. Zone 3 is orange. And zone 4, when you see it, probably 2022, will be a purple. And that, it's a nice purple.
There's no traditional colour for it, so
no one's got it yet. No one's got it. So we'll be the first company to have a zone 4 product in terms of its power and its output. So there hasn't been a colour to kind of judge what would be a zone 4 or that level of percentage in its equivalent sort of thing. So purple will be the zone 4, and that will be available in T5 and the T5 Eco T5 fixtures. That's got the lamp and the reflector all built in. Unfortunately, we've hit a dead end with T8s. We cannot get the power or the power. That's the wrong word.
Squeeze any more out.
Yeah, we just can't get the amount of UVB phosphors needed to make zone 4 in a T8.
We've tried for
as long as we've tried the T5, but T5 is high output, which means it's a huge amount of energy that goes in, and T8 just doesn't have that same effect. And unfortunately, that also goes to compacts as well, in terms of the spiral style compacts or the energy saver compact. We just, at this moment in time, there just isn't the technology or the phosphor or the space available. Actually inside those lamps. And one thing we've also done, another lamp we mentioned at the beginning, which is very popular, is mercury vapors. Now, mercury vapors, you can't zone mercury vapors. No. It's done by wattage. The wattage relates to the amount of light and heat that comes out. So 100 watt will give you X amount of light and X amount of heat. However, what we've done, just bring this to the camera, so apologies if you are just on podcast. On the back of the box, what we've done is we've categorized the distance from the lamp to what zone it will give you. So you can see here, this is zone 1, zone 2 in green, zone 3 in orange, and zone 4 in purple. This red bit at the top here, this represents it's too high. So this is danger. So if your animal is within 6 inches of the lamp, it's too much UV.
Yeah, and which is another reason why we recommend 12 inches as a minimum distance, because it's just too close, especially if an animal is that close, especially to the light source. If it's looking up and it's any lower than sort of 10 inches or so. So we always recommend a minimum of 12 inches. It can cause ocular damage. Imagine if you were staring into a bright light. It's bad enough if you're looking into a torch and turn it on, for instance. Yeah. Imagine that being that close to you. So,
and for 12 hours a day that you can't escape from as well.
Yeah, so that's why we put the recommended distance of a minimum of 12 inches on there.
Yeah, so all the products we've ever produced always have a safe distance of 30 centimeters, 12 inches, and we always kind of tell you what the UVIs you can have before that, but we also say that it's too dangerous to have. And so you've got to, on the back of the, if I just take this one, for example. So this is the T5 unit. So this is our T5 unit with the bulb and the lamp and the ballast all built into one. So just on the side of the box there, what you've got is the distance from the lamp with the reflector, without the reflector. And this unit's actually got a two-sided reflector. So one side of the reflector is very powerful and will almost triple the output. And the other side, the reflector, the low output side, will actually is only a double reflector. So for example, you've got 3 different readings. So for this one, where are we at 12 inches away, we've got a UVI of 1. And if you put it on the full reflector, you'll get a UVI of 3. So it enables you to distance, enables you to kind of give the right distance or the right basking zones for your animal, depending whether your animal basks at 40 centimeters, 30 centimeters, so 12 inches, 15 inches, 18 inches. The American UK divide is brilliant. 12 inches, 18 inches. And it also depends whether you're using mesh. If you're using mesh, there's a note on the bottom there that says you can remove or deduct about 40% of the UV output on this guide just because of the mesh. So if you're using an Exoterra or a Zoom Ed glass enclosure, which are great, they're super popular and they're really good for so many animals, but the mesh on the top,
30
to 40%.
30 to 40%. And what you've got to remember is those figures that we're giving you there, 30 to 40%, that's if the mesh is clean, because you've got a very small section there that the mesh actually is. If you've got some dust or you've got waste product on there or dirt, whatever it is, obviously it's going to reduce the size of that mesh. So you need to keep that in mind, which is another reason as part of your maintenance schedule, you should also hoover your mesh off or give it a sweep to keep it at optimum size. We also recommend, for that very same reason, that you can give your lamps a quick wipe over, obviously when they're cold, just to remove any dust, because all the time you're doing that, you're restricting their output, and it will give you and again, maintenance. If you are using something with a reflector like the Eco T5 units, take the lamp out, a damp cloth, and wipe the reflector as well, because if you're using that high output reflector to triple your UVI output over a large area or greater depth in your enclosure, if your reflector's dirty, it's not gonna triple your output. So maintenance is just keeping things clean and dust free. And reptiles, they can be dusty. A little bit dirty. There's no two ways about it. So we're all happy to kind of to clean the substrate or to look after the plants, but sometimes we forget about the equipment as well. And the equipment, it gets, as Pete said, on the mesh, it's such fine holes, a few bits of dust and a bit of grain on there. It's surprising how much you can start to reduce. So just a simple bit of maintenance, keep things nice and clean, and it's also a fire risk as well. It is a fire risk, yeah. And another question that we was asked quite a great deal is, so you give us all this talk about Ferguson zones, but which Ferguson zone is my animal? So what we did, we actually made quite an extensive list, which we put on the website, but we also made a visual aid as well, which is a poster, which we give free of charge. So
I think I've seen the poster. Did you guys have it? You did a show recently?
Yeah.
Yes.
So anyone visually, they can now see the poster.
Yeah.
Apologies if you can't.
Yeah.
We chose the top.
Was it 100 animals?
I think it was more than that.
It was quite a lot.
Yeah, the top 100 animals or more in each zone. And sort of we gave several of the most popular ones a sort of picture reference and then listed the ones below. But you can see zone 4. Zone 4 has got 20 or so animals.
Yeah, it's very
so there really is, even in nature, there really is only a few animals that tolerate this level of UV.
Yeah.
And the level of UV that a lot of these animals tolerate is actually too high for humans as well.
Yes.
If you look at the UVI or the ultraviolet index guide when you're looking at the weather, when the UV starts to get to kind of 6, 7, 8 UVI, it's recommended that we're not in the sun too much. We only go out for small amounts. But these guys sit in it for 12 hours a day. It's basking in it. So it's actually quite dangerous for us as well. So if you've got large enclosures for these animals, just bear in mind when you're in there, when you do maintenance, there's a lot of UV coming from these products, and we just need to kind of look after ourselves as well as the animals. But yeah, that poster is available everywhere, and the full list of all the animals in the zones is on our website, and there's lots of care guides on the website as well.
Loads of care
for the most popular species. So I got a leopard gecko. You find it under zone 1. Click on the information. It'll talk about heating, lighting, water, food, care, maintenance, temperatures. There's loads of information out there.
Trying to provide a bigger result possible, because animal welfare is definitely paramount, obviously, as far as we're concerned.
Yes, absolutely. That's one of the things that I enjoy about working with you guys, is how much passion is behind all of this. And if you're listening to this and you need some help finding one of these care guides, please just send us a message. We're more than happy to send you a direct link to the care guide that you're looking for, because we want you to be successful.
And there's always going to be people that are going to be difficult to turn over to a new system. And so we did not invent Ferguson Zones. Say someone had done all the work for us. We've just kind of adopted it. So if you're going into a shop and you're still asking for a 2%, 4%, 5%, the biggest problem, when I used to go into a store and encounter these problems, is that a 5% compact, for instance, is not the same as a 5% T5, is not the same as a 5% T8 in regards of output. So all these things have got the same percentage, that you'll plug them in and they'll actually give you all different outputs, which makes it even more confusing if you want to stick to the old method of using percentage, is you can't guarantee that even if you go from brand to brand, there will be a difference, but you can't measure that, because unless you've got some sort of scientific equipment, you can measure this whole output of the lamp using an integrated sphere, for instance, you are not going to be able to isolate what percentage of that is actually coming out of it.
True.
And every chance is, if you're using a 10% lamp, it will probably be closer to 12 or 15%. The reason for that is, historically, when lamps were first brought out and they were 10%, obviously technology has evolved a hell of a long way from that. I mean, over the last 20 years, reptile lighting has changed so massively.
Yeah.
And the technologies that are available have changed so massively. So when they first brought out a 10% lamp, for instance, it wouldn't be compatible with a 10% lamp from the modern era of now.
No, but that's done by research. We now know that, and this is one of the reasons why we also changed to Ferguson Zones, is that, as Pete said, that 10% lamp that was marketed as 10% many years ago has evolved to maybe 12, 13, 15% UVB on some of the ones we looked at. But they're still marketed as 10%, because you can't change the public's perception saying, oh, this is a 15%, because that would mean that it's like a desert
super
plus.
dangerous, yeah, you can't have that.
So a 6% has always been a 6%, but on several occasions they're putting more than 6% phosphor into that lamp, or it's more than 6% UVB output.
And some of the brands you buy might even be less.
Yeah, that's the more alarming side.
Yeah.
Is when you buy the 10%, 12%, 6%, whatever it is you're buying, but what you've got in relative terms is not 6%, and your UVI that you brought for your, let's say, leopard gecko that needs a UVI up to no more than sort of 1.4 UVI on the Ferguson Zone 1, but you're getting 0.2, 0.3.
Yeah.
And if it's lower than sort of 0.7, it's actually quite dangerous going the other way. You can provide too little UV as well as too much.
But I must say, in all fairness, of all the reputable brands that we've tried, they're all good quality. I mean, there's real,
100%.
all of the top 10 brands that we've tried have all got a nice quality product. There's no scary products out there from any of the well-known brands. From some of the less well-known brands and some of the OEM bedroom brands can be a little bit frightening.
And I think that just comes down to maybe kind of, lack of investment or as we fell down as Reptile Systems, kind of made an error when we very first started, when we were researching products to come to market. We was told by the manufacturer what the lamp was.
And we believed it,
Thanks very much. This is perfect. You don't have to do any work because you've told me this is a 12% lamp and it has a UV of this and a UVA of this.
It's got none of this in it. It's got all of that in it.
Unfortunately, we found that not to be true when we tested it ourselves. So now, nothing gets past us in terms of what the manufacturer says. Everything comes to us as a pre-production sample, is then tested for UVI, UVA, UVB, visible light, look, and UVC being the really scary one. And then we put it on a longevity test to make sure it passes the sort of 6 month, 9 month, 12 month sort of process. And all of this happens before we even talk about packaging or price. It's to make sure it's about the product. It's
that can be
animal welfare.
a year to 2 years before we even bring a product to market. And because we've got people obviously going, but when you bring something new out, we can't say that, for the last 18 months we've been working on this, but it's still going to be another 6 months.
I suppose actually that kind of leads to our brand new product that we're launching this week. So this will be the very first time we've actually publicly announced it, I suppose.
Yeah.
So for the last 4 to 5 years of Reptile Systems' existence, we have been researching the theory of mixing LED and UVB in the same product. It's never really been done before. There's a couple of companies coming out and doing something similar now. The products or the chips have got better. So the conventional way is to add a UVB powder, UVA powder into a fluorescent lamp. You hit it with an electrical charge through a glass tube and you get UVI as the output. But that means you have to buy a new lamp every 6 months, 12 months, whatever it is.
Yeah, because when you ignite that tube, it's got a tiny bit of mercury in there. That mercury fires up into a vapor. And obviously light is produced by it burning off some of the product inside. So obviously you can't just keep burning a product and it lasts forever. So what happens is the inside of the product becomes less, your output, both light and UV, will degrade, and eventually you will have to replace the lamp.
So the aquatic market moved away from T8s, T5, metal halides.
Metal halides, yes.
It moved away from that a good few years ago to LED. LEDs are great, they're long lasting, they don't use much wattage, they provide huge amount of light. You can control them, you can dim them up and down, change the colours. And the aquatic market now, I don't know hardly any aquariums as a kit that you buy that don't have LEDs.
It's rare, isn't it? Now?
So there's more and more people going to LED on the fish tank side. Well, Reptile's been a bit slow to kind of keep up with change. And that's mainly because several years ago, UVB couldn't work as an LED. It couldn't emit far enough. It's been available for several years.
Yeah, the printing industry's been using it for a little while, where they project it over a very, very short distance.
And we're talking 1 inch, 2 inch, that's it.
Yeah,
so if your animal wanted to get within kind of 1 to 2 inches of the lamp, then it was available. But these were also crazy expensive and only lasted about a month. So the industry has had to change to be able
technology,
to
like it always does, has moved forward quite nicely.
So we are very proud to launch our latest LED UVB product. And this is the New Dawn UVI Flood. Now, the New Dawn series, there we go, just for anyone that is on visuals, it does exist. The New Dawn series is our plant growing 6,500 Kelvin LED. We do these in various different ranges, from compacts to spot bulbs to T5 lamps to Pro 10 sort of LED bars that go over a longer area.
Yeah, and we do a flood as well. It's got 4 different lights built into one unit.
So it'll, you can light up sort of large zoo enclosures, for example, at 2 to 3 meters
If
away.
anybody watches our social media, they know that we provide lighting for some zoos, bonsai centres. So it's a very, very efficient way of keeping your plants happy and keeping them growing. And it also hits quite a lot of the spectrum, because what we've found out, especially in most of the plant growing UVs that are on the market today, they haven't got enough red. The reason they don't have enough red is because it's not so pleasing to the human eye. And it's very difficult to balance your red out with the right amount of blue to make it acceptable for people to want to have it, really.
Yeah. So when we spoke about the visible light spectrum right at the start, of this 400 to 700 nanometer, plants need the 400 end, which is the blue, and they also need the 700 end, which is the red that Peter just mentioned. And then the bit in the middle is the kind of the white light. So it's an idea is to kind of blend all of that 400 to 700 nanometer range into an LED. And that's what New Dawn does. So it gives you the entire spectrum of visible light, often referred to as full spectrum. Technically, it's full spectrum of visible light.
Yeah.
Full spectrum would be what we said earlier, which is UV, visible, and infrared, and it doesn't do those. It's just the visible light that plants need.
So what we've done, we're trying to blend that into the UVB product. It's not really a one lamp does all option, because there's obviously still things that it doesn't do. So it is nice to grow plants under it. It will give you a decent dollop of UVB as well, but you will need to add other things to it, like a heat source, for instance.
Yes. So this is a hybrid lamp.
It is a hybrid lamp, yeah, definitely.
So we've got 60 LEDs in a 13 watt area. It's got, I'm trying to think now, we've got 30 UVB LEDs, 28 6500 LEDs for your plants, and then we've got 2 UVA LEDs. Now, one of the comments we've already had back on the social media side of things was 2 UVA, it doesn't seem worth it, but because the visible light touches the UVA and the UVB touches the UVA LEDs are really powerful in their own spectrum. So if you was to have 20 of these, it would actually overrun and overwrite the 6500 Kelvin LEDs and the UVB, and you just end up with a UVA lamp. Trust me, we know, because we experimented with it.
Some of our early prototypes.
We tried this. We tried sort of on 60 LEDs, we tried 20 of each. And the product turned into a UVA light, which was great for UVA, but the visible light was terrible because UVA chips overrun the UVB and the 6500.
Yeah, you need to change the amount of wattage that you put to them, because there's the frequency of them. I'm not sure of the science part of it, the electronics.
So we really had to kind of blend the lamps together. So the UVB side, on the back there, again, we're talking Ferguson zones. So on the back of the box, it shows you quite clearly, you've got zone 4 and the distance, zone 3, zone 2, zone 1. So the further away you get from the product will give you your different zones. Obviously, if you're using mesh, as we've mentioned, you've got to consider the sort of mesh is going to remove some of that UV, but also light output in general. But we've been running this product this final product for well over a year to make sure it kind of meets all our standards. Independently tested by now four different people, where there's no UVC.
We've got more samples that have been sent out for people to test as well. We've got a few more testers out there doing stuff. Yeah, so
we're very happy with it. It's not the cheapest thing, I have to be honest. It's going to be in the range, in terms of dollars, it's going to be getting up to the $180, kind of $200 product. When you think about mercury vapors being $50 and T5 lamps being sort of $30, $40, it's at the beginning of a new age in technology. And like when a PlayStation 5 comes out, it's very expensive. It's the same thing. This never really been done before. I know ZoomEd's we're going head to head with ZoomEd.
Yeah, and that's a nice product as well.
Yeah, which for us is fantastic. I mean, ZoomEd is a huge global giant of reptile products, and to launch an LED UVB product at the same time as ZoomEd and sort of go head to head with a 4-year-old, 5-year-old brand against what are they, 20 odd years, 30 years, maybe more than that. So, I mean, for us, it's really exciting to kind of, for us and ZoomEd to kind of have this new kind of cutting edge sort of way. Are things going to change? Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
LEDs are going to get
definitely
better. Progress is going to be made. They're going to be more efficient, bigger output, more spread. We're already working on another LED product. So we've called this one the Flood. So this is the New Dawn UVI Flood, and the main reason behind that, 120-degree lenses. So when you've got it over your enclosure, you get this huge kind of flooded area. The downside with that is it reduces the UVI over a large area. So the next product is to kind of work on something that kind of punches UVI down over a smaller area for deeper enclosures. That'll be, that's.
And the other thing is worth mentioning as well, we've had a few people say, well, the chips in the middle don't look like they're working. Because the reason why we've got the light emitting chips on there, the 6,500 Kelvin ones, is because obviously with UVB, it's out of any of our eyesight. So it looks like they're not on. So it is nice to have some visible light being emitted on there, just so you know it's on as well.
So the way it works, down the edges, so we can just see down the edges, these yellow dots down the edges, these are the 6,500 Kelvin LEDs that are going to grow your plants. And then the 2 rows down the middle, these 30 LEDs down the middle are a bit darker on the packaging there. They're the UVB chips. And as Pete said, they don't look like they're working. Well, no, they are, but we can't see UVB. As we said earlier, UV, visible, and heat, and we can only see visible. So, but if you get your solar meter, we're just about to launch a nice little YouTube video that shows all of this, and you'll see with the solar meter, just the level of UVI between zone 1, zone 2, zone 3 of what this product can really do. So it's quite an exciting time for us. So this keeps the features of our New Dawn plant growing range, but adds the development of the UVI or UVB chips into the product as well. So it's a true hybrid of bringing a fluorescent lamp and a plant growing LED into one product. So exciting time. So yeah, I mean, Ferguson Zone in a nutshell, really, just to kind of summarize, I think. It's easy. Do your research, find out what zone your animal is.
Yes.
And then go to the store or your preferred online seller and buy the products in that zone. Whether you are a T5 or T8 or compact or whatever preference of equipment you're using, all of our equipment references the Ferguson Zone and the distance you'll get in terms of UVI from that product.
Nice and simple. And just on a side note there as well, if you bought a product and you realise that the product you bought is excellent, but your enclosure is taller than you thought it was originally, what you never do, you never lower your lamp. What you should do is raise your basking site or add some decor. Because what you don't want to do, you don't want to bring that down any lower, because then you're making certain areas of your enclosure too high in UV. So put the product where it needs to be, and then you can build elevated sections, whether it be with decor or you can put rocks and stuff in there. But do not lower your lamp.
Yeah, I think just to kind of touch on that, take that one stage further. I think when you look at an enclosure, let's kind of go bearded dragon. I think the world's most popular reptile. Yeah. If you think of a 48-inch or a 60-inch enclosure for a bearded dragon, when you're providing UV and heat and light, you don't want to provide UV across your whole enclosure. You only really want to cover half.
Yeah, because you want to provide a thermal gradient, you want to provide a photo gradient, you want to provide a UV gradient as well.
So sometimes there is the method referred in the industry as the shade method.
Yeah.
But this doesn't mean actually putting your animal in the dark. What it means is allowing your animal to get away from UV. Even a zone 3 animal that might bask for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours a day, he needs to, or she needs to regulate themselves. So sometimes, even though your lamp is producing, the perfect basking site at 18 inches away for them to sit at, sometimes you'll find they'll be under the branch or under the log or in the cave because they just don't need any more UV at that time. And that's the light and shade method. So we talked that bearded dragon that is zone 3. Zone 3 is between UVI 3 and 5, roughly, a little bit higher.
Yeah.
But it doesn't harm your enclosure. The right thing to do is to allow it to have a UVI of 0, a UVI of 1, a UVI of 2, UVI of 3, 4, 5, and maybe a slightly higher again until
if
a
as long as
UVI
it's
of
got
6.
access to it, the animal itself will self-regulate. They know exactly what they want.
And they'll move around to
So
find them.
you're not going to sit out in the midday sun you're not going to sit out in the sun all day on your sun lounger because you'd be like, wow, I'm feeling quite hot. So you go indoors. It's exactly that same principle.
Or maybe have a drink of it.
Obviously have a drink of beer.
Yeah, or dive in the pool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the first thing. You don't go in, you go in the sea, have a couple of cocktails, and then go back on the sunland.
Yeah, that's a much better plan. Yeah.
But bearded dragons can't do that, unfortunately. So, no, so they need to escape the heat, they need to escape the light and the UV as much as they want to worship it. And we need to provide those 3 elements that we said right at the start, UV, light, and heat, and allow them to regulate themselves. You're providing it for the enclosure, and the animal will regulate where it wants to go as long as it's got the right level of UV it wants one end, and sort of low UV the other
Right
end.
down to 0.
Yeah, allow it to get out of the way altogether. Provide a nice branch that comes over, or a cave that it can kind of go into, and also when it comes to heat, provide some heat from the top and some heat from below. Belly heat for reptiles is just as much as heat on the back.
Yeah, whether you do that with a mat, whether you do it with a cable, whether you put a nice big piece of slate to re-radiate heat from your overhead heat source, all nice and natural ways to do it. I mean, I imagine we're going to be talking about heat in another section of the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, the heating side of it alone is actually quite difficult in terms of products to produce for, especially compared to UV.
Yeah.
Because UV is broken down into 3 levels. You've got UVA, UVB, and UVC. Luckily for us, UVC is filtered out by the ozone layer, and it's completely dangerous and very harmful to all living things on the planet. So we don't have to worry about that. That's great. UVA and UVB, we can provide products to do that. But on the infrared scale, it's the same thing. You've got IRA, IRB, and IRC. Now, the sun doesn't produce IRC, but reptiles use it.
Yeah.
So IRA is produced by the sun, and we can provide that with a ceramic heater.
No, you need a light substance. It needs to be on this.
Yeah, so we're talking,
Basking spots.
basking spots, filament.
Any other filamented products, they will give you infrared A.
But IRC is produced from the product or the piece of slate Pete mentioned a minute ago, and re-radiating that heat back out. So although it's not produced organically by the sun, it is, because in nature, obviously, it's going to warm up those rocks, warm up that sort of area, the sand, and that's when it kind of produces the IRC kind of back out into the animal. So all of that needs to be kind of produced. The heating side is just as important, but as long as you're providing the 3 elements in your enclosure, then your animal
in a naturalistic way as possible. I think that's the difficult part. Is always trying to recreate nature is going to always be tricky.
Yeah, and that's the same whether it's an aquarium or a terrarium.
Yes, you're taking a slice of the world and put it into a box.
Yeah, let's get a piece of river and stick it in a fish tank. Why have I got problems? It's the same. It's the same element, and we just need to kind of make sure we hit everything the animal needs in the right proportions, and that is the tricky thing. And we as consumers, as hobbyists, as animal keepers, we are sometimes in the hands of marketing hype.
Marketing is incredibly scary. I mean, especially misinformation. I mean, just here in the UK, we've just had a terrible fuel scare that was made from thin air because there's no fuel shortage. But all of a sudden, everyone's gone bananas. And it just goes to show the power of marketing and media is quite scary.
Media said there's a fuel strike, there's a fuel shortage, so everyone out and bought loads of fuel, and we ran out of fuel.
There's a shortage.
There's a shortage. Well, there is a shortage now because we just brought it all too quickly. Yeah. So it's the same thing. You read something and use the forums, use Facebook. It is good.
And don't be afraid to ask questions. Ask loads of questions.
But also ask your retailers and ask a friend. And, if you ask 6 people, and you might get 6 slightly different pieces of advice, because there's no one way is correct. And that is the problem with keeping animals. whether it's a dog or a horse or a cat. There's no one piece of advice that's right. Keeping a fish tank is exactly the same thing.
Well, look at dogs. I mean, trying to keep a dog right, do you use the raw diet? Do you use dry food? Do you use wet food? I mean, what do you use?
Too much exercise, not enough exercise.
Dogs have been pets for thousands of years and no one's still got the quite hang of it yet.
Yeah, so kind of ask loads of questions. Contact us through Facebook, through social media, drop us an email directly. I mean, we're always happy to help or point you in the right direction where you can get the right advice from. No matter what country you live in, we can always convert languages and whatever. That's not a problem. But ask the questions, ask away, find the information, research it.
There's some great scientific papers out there, which might sound a bit hard to swallow, but if you read through them 2 or 3 times, there's a lot of information that you can glean from them. And again, once you've got that information, and there's no saying that the information that you're getting from any of your sources is 100% correct. Or the good thing about science is it's changing constantly and people are doing new research and finding out new answers. So yeah, just keep asking questions, really.
All right. I like it. Good advice. Excellent advice. I'm going to come to you guys. I'm thinking about getting a chameleon. So if I get a chameleon, you're going to have to answer all my questions.
Do you know what? They are awesome. They are truly awesome. A couple of key factors, though. Yeah, just make sure whether it's a zone 2 or a zone 3 chameleon.
Yes.
Because there's chameleons in the zone 2 or the zone 3. Ooh. And right amount of UV at the right direction as well.
Yeah, so the thing is with chameleons, the reason why a lot of them are very flat is because they actually bask perpendicular to the sun. So they can absorb the maximum amount of heat and light in a short space of time possible. So you'll often see them leaning on their side a little bit, which is why we invented the rotating bracket. But let's not go into that.
Yeah, that's another topic. We can do a whole podcast just on that one.
We'll save that all for another time.
Yeah, so again, you see, when you kind of look at the standard enclosure, you fit your lights to the top and the lights kind of come down and your chameleon's sitting on a branch and he's getting all this light
which
and
is
heat.
Unnatural, other than at midday, that's a very unnatural thing.
But the sun in nature kind of does this. It comes over the top and then sort of sets over here. So chameleons, as Pete said, they love to angle slightly, kind of backwards and forwards, depending where the heat's coming from or light's coming from. And we developed a product called the rotating bracket. You can modify it to put it in a dome, and you can put different products, but you can angle it at any direction to kind of suit your enclosure's needs.
Unfortunately, we haven't worked out a way to get it to track the movement of the sun yet.
Oh, I'm sure that with some cool kind of gyroscopes and everything else. But again, if you've got $10,000 we will make you one, no problem at all. I'm sure we can make one.
We're not run up. Yeah, it's not.
Yeah. But no, so again, chameleons are one of those really cool animals that, again, yes, they may be a zone 2, they may be a zone 3, but again, something else, there's something different to provide with those guys, which is this side light. So don't always put the lights above. Sometimes kind of put them on the side of the enclosures, kind of coming in that way.
I mean, yeah, it needs obviously to be above, but not directly above. And the thing is as well, then you're talking about another whole set of environmental factors involving humidity as well.
Oh, yeah.
And ventilation.
Yeah, lots of ventilation.
Lots of ventilation. And depending on where it comes from, it's either humidity in the morning and in the evening to replicate that early morning dew, if you even get in the desert and that sort of nighttime chill off. Or if it comes from a tropical environment, you might have to keep your humidity at a certain level all day.
We're not trying to put you off. No, not
research.
I'm doing my research first before I buy.
Yeah, actually now thinking, I'm not going to do this. I'm just going to get another fish tank.
Yeah, no. Fish are cool and all, but
No, that's cool. There's some cool information out there. There's some brilliant kind of chameleon forums and stuff to kind of jump on
and there's still
see what people are doing.
Good old-fashioned literature out there as well that you can read. And some of the magazines have some fantastic articles as well.
Yeah, magazines unfortunately get a bit overlooked these days with kind of with forums and the internet kind of being so powerful. But yeah, some of the stuff out there is definitely worth a read and worth a look. So hey, look, Dr. Tim. I mean, he's the professor in all of this. He knows exactly what it is, from writing papers, and to kind of doing podcasts today. You've got to keep up with the times. But yeah, sometimes it's nice to kind of read a paper or a document that someone's written about their sort of their good points and bad points, the mistakes they've made. Don't make those ones. Don't do as I did.
Yeah. If anybody tells you they've never made a mistake, they're just either lying or they've never done anything. That's what I'm saying.
Very true.
That's very true, Stephen.
Not that I've ever made a mistake. I'm talking about other people.
Other people, yeah. We don't make mistakes, honestly.
No.
We say that to the lawyers just in case.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, in terms of the podcast about Ferguson Zones, I hope that kind of helps explain why we changed the packaging concept from percentage to the Ferguson Zones to make it easy, and to kind of take all of that, the trouble of choosing the product that's right for your animal. You know that if you've got a Zone 2 animal, you buy a Zone 2 product. There it is. All the figures are on the box, whether it's T8, T5, a fixture, a mercury vapor, all the information's there.
And also there's the backup where they can either get in touch with you guys, they can get in touch with us. It's not really a problem. So it's like, ask questions. If you need help, just ask.
Absolutely. And we'll be, I'll be getting some of the photos from some of these things in like the back of the packaging that you guys talked about. So if you're listening to the podcast, or if you're not even on the podcast, you're just on social media and you want to see some of this stuff, I think it's really great information that, you know, you guys, I'm sure have it on your social media. So we'll put it on ours as well.
Yeah, there is just tons. Just tons and tons. And whether that's Instagram, whether that's Facebook, there's loads of videos on YouTube going back, you know, and some of the product guides, some of the animal guides, just even sort of, you know, just the product guide of what is a T8 lamp and what is it used for? Where did it come from? Why are we using it?
Yeah, there's some good posts, especially on social media and all these different stuff as well.
So yeah, there's loads of stuff out there, but again, you know, some of it, most of your listeners, they'll probably know, but there's a few people, I've always wanted to know that, but I've always been a bit afraid to ask. Ask away, ask the questions. And if we don't know the answer, we've got another, you know, kind of huge library of resources to go and find out as well. Because if we don't know, we'd like to know.
And we know someone that will know.
Oh, there's always someone that's known.
Yeah, someone expert in a certain particular species. So yeah,
just ask Tim. Let Tim know. No worries. Well, I think that kind of wraps up the Ferguson Zone episode 2 podcast.
Thank you guys for joining me for podcast number 2.